I'm a 911 dispatcher, and my boss gave me one strict rule. If a call comes from the abandoned house on the county line, never answer it. But after weeks of hearing a little boy on the line begging for help because a mass killer was in his house, I broke the rule and picked up. Instantly, the boy's screams were cut off. Instead, I heard a hoarse, terrified whisper from a man. It was the voice of the dispatcher who worked my shift before me, the one who vanished without a trace. And he whispered, "He sees you through the line. He's looking right at you." Hey guys, welcome back. 3 stories tonight. Let's go. She had been a 911 dispatcher for 12 years, the last 7 on the graveyard shift. You think you've heard it all after that long. The drunks, the domestics, the panicked fumbling for words after a car crash. It all becomes a kind of white noise, a rhythm of human misery you learn to navigate without letting it touch you. You have to. It's the only way to stay sane. Her district was a sprawling, sleepy county that died after 10 p.m., mostly soccer mums and retirees. The worst they usually got on a weeknight was a noise complaint, or a teenager who'd had too much to drink at a bonfire. The job had become a cycle of caffeine and fluorescent lights, and the low, constant hum of computer servers. She was burned out, deeply and existentially tired, in a way sleep couldn't fix. The first call came on a Tuesday, about 3 months ago, 2:47 a.m., the deadest hour of the deadest night. The line lit up on her console, not in the usual way. It wasn't a cell call with a GPS ping, or a landline with a registered address. Just a raw signal, unregistered VoIP. She clicked it open. 911, what is your emergency? Static, a thick, wet sound, like listening to the radio underwater, and underneath it, a whisper. A child's voice, a boy, maybe 7 or 8. He sounded like he was trying to talk without moving his lips. Hello? Can you hear me? This is 911. I can barely hear you. What is your emergency? The static swelled. He's back. The man in the mask is back. A chill went down her spine, the professional kind, the one that tells you this is real. Okay, son, where are you? I need an address. Hurting mummy. Daddy's asleep on the floor. He won't wake up. Son, I need you to tell me where you are. I can't send help if I don't know where you are. Her fingers flew across the keyboard trying to get a trace. The system kicked back errors. No location data. No subscriber info. Nothing. The old house, he whispered. At the end of the road. Please. Then the line went dead. Not a click. Not a hang-up. It just ceased to exist. Out on the western edge of the county, there's a long, unpaved road that peters out into the woods. And at the end of it, one house. A big, derelict Victorian thing that had been empty for as long as anyone could remember. She dispatched a patrol car. 15 minutes later, her senior officer came back over the radio. His voice was flat and annoyed. Dispatch, the property is secure. No signs of forced entry. Place is boarded up tighter than a drum. Nobody here. Hasn't been for 50 years by the looks of it. She logged it as unfounded and tried to put it out of her mind. A prank. A week later, at 2:47 a.m., the same line lit up, the same static, the same terrified whispering voice. He's in the house. I can hear him walking. A knot of ice formed in her stomach. He has the mask on, the one with the scary smile. Mummy's screaming. Faintly through the storm of static, she thought she could hear it. A woman's scream, high and thin and distorted, like a sound being played backwards. She dispatched 2 cars this time, told them it was a repeat call, possibly a hostage situation. They set up a perimeter, used a bullhorn, broke down the front door. The result was the same, an empty house. Thick, undisturbed layers of dust on every surface, rotted floorboards, peeling wallpaper, no footprints, no child, no man in a mask, no sign that a human being had set foot in that house in decades. Her supervisor told her to drop it. It's a glitch, some kind of cross chatter or electronic echo. Don't waste county resources on it. But she couldn't. The boy's voice was too real. The terror in it was primal. You can't fake that. Not even the best actor in the world can fake the sound of a child who thinks his mother is being murdered in the next room. The calls kept coming. Every Tuesday, like clockwork, 2:47 a.m. Each call a slightly different piece of the same horrible puzzle. He's hurting Daddy now. There's so much red. Mummy stopped screaming. He's looking for me. I can hear him opening doors. Every time she sent a car. Every time the result was the same. Her colleagues started whispering when she walked by. They thought she was cracking up. Maybe she was. She became obsessed. During the day, instead of sleeping, she went to the county records office. She needed to know who owned that house. She dug backwards through dusty ledgers and brittle property deeds. Finally, she found it. The last family to actually live there. A deed from 1968. A mum, a dad, 2 kids, a boy and a girl. She spent her days in the library's basement, scrolling through decades of local newspapers on an ancient microfiche reader. For weeks she found nothing. Then she found it. An article from a cold late autumn day in 1975. The headline was stark. Local family slain in apparent home invasion. Her blood ran cold. A husband, a wife, their 10-year-old daughter, found dead in their home. The article was vague, using phrases like brutal force trauma. The police report mentioned a possible intruder, a figure a neighbor had seen fleeing into the woods, described only as a tall man wearing some kind of pale, expressionless mask. But the last paragraph was what made her stop breathing. The family's 8-year-old son remains missing. Police found evidence he was hiding in an upstairs closet during the attack, but the boy has not been found. The crime was never solved. The masked man was never found. The little boy was never seen again. She went straight to her supervisor. She told him everything. That's when they told her about the dispatcher who had worked her seat before her. A good man, sharp, dedicated. About a year before she was hired, he started getting strange. Obsessed with a specific address, the old house at the end of the road. He kept sending cars out there, insisting there was a child in trouble. The patrols always came back empty. He started pulling old files, spending his days off at the library. He claimed he was getting calls no one else could hear. We checked the logs, her supervisor said, his voice low and serious. The system never registered the calls he said he was taking. We pulled the audio recorders. There was nothing on them but dead air. We thought he was having a breakdown. Her blood turned to ice water. The system doesn't log the calls for me either, she whispered. They just show up on the screen and then disappear. The supervisor nodded slowly. One night he took a call. We watched him on the console. His face was ashen. He was typing a report. Then he just stopped. He stood up, grabbed his jacket and his keys, and walked out without a word. Where did he go? He drove out to the house. His car was found parked on the road the next morning. Engine cold, doors locked. He was gone. The silence in the room was absolute. We searched. The police did a grid search of the entire woods. Dogs, helicopters. They went through that house from the attic to the cellar. They found nothing. No sign of a struggle, no footprints. He just vanished. Her supervisor leaned forward, his eyes locking onto hers. The next time that line rings, you do not answer it. If you answer by mistake, you hang up immediately. You do not talk to him. You terminate the call and you clear the line. That is an order. For the next few weeks, she was a ghost herself. She dreaded Tuesday nights. She drank so much coffee she could feel her heart rattling in her chest. She thought about quitting. She thought about just walking out and never coming back. Then last night it happened. 2:45 a.m. She was staring at the clock, her knuckles white. 2:46, 2:47. The line lit up, the unregistered VoIP. It felt like a physical blow. Every fibre of her being screamed at her to answer it. There was a child in trouble. That was the job. But she remembered the story of the man who had vanished. She let it ring. Once. Twice. The flashing light on the console seemed to sear her retinas. Her hand hovered over the button. Trembling, she clicked it. 911, what is your... The static was a roar, louder than it had ever been, and through it, the boy's voice came. Not whispering this time, screaming. He's got me, please, he's taking me, please don't let him take me, help me. The sound ripped through her professional detachment and tore right into her soul. Her hand flew to the keyboard to dispatch a car, a purely reflexive action. But she stopped. He's gone. This already happened, it's not real. The boy was sobbing now, his screams turning into choked, gasping pleas. Please, you promised, you said you'd send help, don't leave me. She felt tears welling up. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." She reached for the terminate button, her finger a millimeter from the glass, and then the screaming stopped. Not a fade out, an abrupt cut, as if a switch had been flipped. The static dropped to a low, sinister hum. The line was still open. Silence. Then a new sound came through the headset. It wasn't the boy, it was a man's voice, a whisper, just as terrified as the child's had been, but older, hoarser, distorted by the same underwater static. A voice trying to push its way through an impossible distance, through time itself. A voice you recognized from an old staff photo in the hallway. "He's here." She froze. "He sees you. Through the line. He's looking right at you." A cold dread so absolute and profound it felt like death itself washed over her. She slowly looked up from her console, across the darkened dispatch center, toward the plate glass windows that looked out into the night. There was nothing there, but the reflection of her own terrified face in the glass, her skin pale in the glow of the monitors. The whispering in her ear continued, a final chilling plea from a place beyond hope. "Please, get me out of here." Alright, 1 down, 2 to go. That one was about something that found a way to reach for a telephone line, something patient, something that had been waiting in that house for 50 years. This next one is different. No phone calls, no static, just a front door, left open for 2 days, and a neighbor who kept insisting she was fine, right up until he walked inside and turned on the light. Since it was a sunny Friday afternoon, he didn't think much of it at first. It was 5:30 and he had just returned home from work. When he saw that his neighbor's front door was open, he assumed she was simply unloading something from her car. He went inside, went through his usual after-work routine, a run, dinner for him and his wife Alice. It was only in the evening that he began to suspect something was wrong. He was taking their dog Bailey out for her final walk of the day. He put Bailey's harness on, they stepped outside, and he looked up and noticed the door to the house directly across the street was still wide open. Strange too was the fact that despite her car being in the driveway, the house was completely dark, not a single light on inside. He crossed the street. His neighbor was a 20-something named Isabel. A sweet girl. They weren't exactly close. Sometimes he gave her lemons from their tree in exchange for figs. That was pretty much the extent of it. Still, the sight of that open door made him uneasy. What if she'd had some kind of medical emergency? What if she was unconscious on the floor of her entryway right now? After a few steps up the driveway, the leash went taut. He looked down. Bailey had seated herself firmly on the ground, refusing to budge even as he called her name and tugged on the leash. Her ears were pricked up, her eyes fixed on the house like she was waiting for something. She wasn't growling, but he was unnerved by her alert posture, her refusal to walk any closer to the door. He called out, "Isabel, it's Brian from across the street. Can you hear me?" For a moment there was only silence. Then just as he was about to drop the leash and walk up the steps, a voice came from the dark. "Hey Brian," she said, then coughed once and cleared her throat. "Sorry, I'm in the middle of dinner here. What's up?" He breathed a sigh of relief. "Hey, sorry, I just saw your front door was open. Wanted to make sure you knew." A strangely long pause. "Oh, you're so sweet to check in. Yes, I know it's open. It's just been so hot today. I wanted to let the breeze in. I'll close it soon." He tugged Bailey back down the driveway and they completed their walk. He went to sleep, happy that his neighbor was all right. The next afternoon, he was in the living room when he looked out the front window and was surprised to see that Isabel's front door was open again. Open again, he wondered, or was it never shut? He got close to the window and studied the house. The rain was coming down hard by then. Despite this, there wasn't a single light on inside. It was so dark inside that the entrance to the house seemed less like a door and more like a black painted rectangle on the exterior wall. He turned to look at Bailey. She was on a nearby couch, also looking out the window, ears pressed against her head. Just then, his wife Alice walked in. She had just gotten off the phone with her sister Clara, who lived on the other side of the neighborhood. Clara saw a woman peeking into her house a few nights ago. She said there had been a few reports on Clara's side of town, other people experiencing the same thing. Nothing stolen, no one hurt. But the description Clara gave made his thoughts drift to Isabel. He asked what the woman looked like. Alice hesitated. "You've got to take this with a grain of salt. You know how Clara is." When Alice relayed the description, a chill ran down his spine. Clara said the woman was tall and gaunt, enough so that she originally mistook her for a man. Her skin looked too tight across her face. Her eyes looked unnaturally deep set, as though they were too far back in her skull. And when she saw that Clara had spotted her, she gave her a big smile. When she smiled, she had too many teeth. He figured he should at least tell Isabel to be careful. He put on his raincoat and headed outside. Halfway down the driveway, he heard frantic barking. He turned. Bailey was in the window, her paws on the sill, growling and whimpering over the heavy rain. His wife appeared next to her with a questioning look. He shrugged and crossed the street. He stopped at the bottom of Isabel's porch steps and listened. He could hear someone inside. A deep, wet, ripping sound, like something being torn. A voice called out from the dark interior. "Brian?" He only wondered in retrospect how she could have known it was him. "Hello again. Sorry to bother you. Would you mind coming out for a minute?" "Brian," her tone was almost reprimanding, "this isn't a good time. You always seem to catch me in the middle of a meal." "It won't take long. Isabel, there's been some suspicious activity around the neighborhood. Maybe you ought to keep the door shut today." "Oh, but I'm so comfortable here on the couch. Why don't you close the door for me?" The couch. Wasn't she in the middle of a meal? And her voice sounded so close, like she couldn't have been more than a few feet away from him. Was she hiding behind the door? He climbed up the rest of the steps. He knew there was a light switch right next to the front door. He thought he'd just go inside for a minute, say hello, shut the door for her. He stood at the threshold, shocked at how, despite his closeness, the inside of the house remained pitch black. He thrust a hand inside and it disappeared like he'd dipped it into oil. As he groped around for the light switch, his fingers brushed against something solid, something fleshy. He jerked his hand back, certain he had just touched a person. Isabel? And then, from inches away, came the sound of laughter. Deep, gravelly, mocking. It did not resemble his neighbour's voice in the slightest. Before he could react, he heard the quick pitter-patter of footsteps against wood, growing quieter and quieter, the sound of someone running away from him. After a few seconds, he thought he heard a door open and shut in the distance. The back door, perhaps. He stuck his arm inside again and this time found the light switch. He turned on the light. A normal entryway revealed itself. Normal coat rack, normal shoe rack. No eerie intruders in sight. He stepped inside, turned left, walked into the living room, and was greeted by the sight of his neighbour, or at least what was left of her. She was splayed out atop the couch, her head lolled off the side. Her empty eye sockets and wide-open, toothless mouth looked like 3 holes had been dug into her face. Her face was missing its skin. She had been flayed. Not only her face, but her arms and the top part of her torso, like someone had been methodically working their way down her body until he had interrupted them. He stood in place, paralyzed by fear. He waited to wake up from a nightmare. He waited for Isabel to walk in from an adjoining room and tell him it was a Halloween prop. He waited for a dangerously long time. Then he staggered out into the rain. He called the police immediately. They arrived, took statements, went across the street to investigate. It's been days now. They haven't told him anything, despite his repeated calls to the station. He can't get answers, can't sleep, can't eat. He just keeps replaying the discovery over and over. The voice, the feeling of brushing against a body in the dark, and of course, the sight of that poor girl's mangled corpse. He has too many questions to count, but 3 rise above the rest. Who the hell was he talking to? How did they sound so perfectly like his neighbour? And why is it that every night since he found the body, Bailey hasn't stopped sitting by the front door and growling? 2 down, 1 to go. That one was about something that wore a person's voice while it finished its meal. This last one is stranger than both of them put together. No monster. No creature you can name. Just a professor, who came home one day to find a little boy making craft dinner in his kitchen. A boy who called him Papa. A boy who everyone in his life apparently already knew. A boy he had never seen before in his life. How old must he be now? 8? 9? He stared at his neighbour, unsure what she was asking. She read the confusion on his face. "You're cute, little guy. I saw him biking down the lane earlier. He must be old enough for grade 4 now, right? Mrs. Babbage was a bit on the older side, but he never thought she had shown signs of dementia. Not until now. He awkwardly opened his mouth. Oh, right, my little guy. She brightened. Yes, he must be in grade 4, right? Sure. I mean, yes, he is. What a cute little guy, she said, and returned to watering her flowers. He took the rest of his groceries inside. He had a long day of teaching and just wanted to sit back and watch something light on TV. But as soon as he took off his first shoe, he smelt it. Something burning on the stove. Something burning with lots of cheese on it. He dashed into the kitchen and almost fell down. There was a scrawny little boy frying Kraft dinner. He let out a half scream. What? Excuse me? Who are you? What are you doing here? The boy's blonde hair whipped around his face as he looked back with equal surprise. Papa, what do you mean? I'm here. I'm here. He was a scared, confused child with a bizarre inflection to his words. Do you want some KD, Papa? Have some. Have some. Was that a Russian accent? He was wearing an oversized shirt that looked just like his. Was he wearing his clothes? He held out his palms, his standard lecture hall, settled down gesture. I'm sorry, I don't know who you are, or what this is. The boy widened his eyes. Still frightened, he stirred the food with a wooden spoon. Is KD Papa, your favourite, chili cheese kind, don't you remember? His name was Dmitri, and he claimed to be his son. Apparently at some point there had been a mother, but he didn't remember much about her. He only remembered him. You've been Papa my whole life, Papa. He tried to have a sit-down conversation, several sit-down conversations, where he explained to Dmitri that that would be impossible, but it always ended with the boy clutching him with impassioned tears, begging him to remember him. The confusion only got worse when his mother called. How is my grandson doing? She asked. He stared at the phone. Mum, I don't have a son. I've never had a son. His mother gasped, then laughed and scolded him, saying he shouldn't joke around like that, because of course he had always had a son, a smart little guy who would be celebrating 9 this weekend. He hung up. He stood petrified in his own kitchen, staring at the strange, expectant Slavic child. He decided to play along. He told the boy his brain must have been scrambled from overworking, that he apologized for not remembering he was his father. Dmitri brightened immediately. It's okay, Papa. It's okay. You always work so hard. He gave him a hug. The tension dropped as Dmitri finished making the noodles and served himself some. He politely declined and watched him eat. So we can be normal now? The boy asked, his eyes shimmering. A wan chill trickled down his neck. He didn't want to say, yes, we can be normal now, because this was not normal. Far from it. To his shock and dismay, he discovered that Dmitri also had his own room. His home office had somehow been replaced by a barren, clay-walled chamber, filled with linen curtains and old wooden toys and a simple bed. The smell of bread and earth wafting throughout. He watched him play with his blocks and spinning tops for about half an hour. Then Dmitri started to yawn and said he wanted to sleep. It was the strangest thing tucking him in. He didn't want pajamas or anything. He just hopped into his straw bed and asked him to hold his hand. Dmitri's fingers were cold, slightly clammy little things, very bizarre to comfort him like his own son, but it appeared to work. He softened and lay still. He didn't ask for a lullaby or bedtime story. He just wanted to hold his hand for a minute. Thank you, Papa. I'm so glad you're here. So glad you can be my Papa. Good night. He called his colleague Pat. She had the same reaction as his mother. Harlan, of course you have a son, from your marriage to Svetlana. My marriage to who? You met her in Moscow when you were touring Europe. It was true he had guest lectured across Europe 15 years ago. He had only stayed in Moscow for 3 days. I never met anyone named Svetlana. Don't be weird, Harlan. You and Svetlana were together for many years. He didn't sleep that night. He spent the hours scouring filing cabinets and drawers throughout the house. He had credit card bills covering school supplies in kids' clothing shops. He even had pictures of Dmitri hung around the walls from various ages. Everything was conforming to this new reality. The harder he looked for clues to disprove his fatherhood, the more evidence he found confirming it. It was Dmitri who woke him up off the living room couch the next morning. He said Uncle Boris was here. He peeked through the window, a very large, blonde man smiling back at him. Behind him, a gaggle of other relatives, all speaking Russian to each other. all wearing tunics and leggings, traditional birthday clothes. He was completely floored. He didn't know what to do. Dmitri came to pull at his arm. "Come on, Papa. We have to let them in." "I don't know any of them." "Yes, you do, Papa. It's Uncle Boris." He yanked his hand away. It was one thing to pretend he was this kid's dad for a night. It was quite another to let a group of strangers into his house first thing in the morning. Their struggle was on display for everyone outside. Boris looked at him with saucer eyes. Dmitri pulled harder. He had no choice but to pull harder back. The boy hit his head on a table as he fell. Boris yelled something in Russian. His front door unlocked. Footsteps barreled inside. 3 large Slavic men entered with stern expressions. Dmitri hid behind them. And then a slender pair of arms pushed aside all the male figures and revealed a woman with unwavering, bloodshot eyes. He knew who she was immediately, Svetlana. She wore a draped brown sheet as a dress, her skin so pale he could practically see her sinews and bones. Something in him knew this person. He saw flashes of her holding his waist in Moscow, outside Red Square, flashes of her lips whispering chants in the shadows of St. Basil's Cathedral. Svetlana held Dmitri's shoulder, then looked up at him. "Just tell him it will be normal. Tell him everything will be normal." "No, this is not happening. None of this is real." Barefoot and still wearing the same clothes as the day before, he bolted out the back of his house, hurtled toward his driveway, hopped into his car, and stepped on the gas. As he drove away, he looked back into the rearview mirror, and he swears it didn't look like his house at all. He swears it looked like a thatched roof hut. Back at the university, he walled himself up in his study. No one in his department knew he had a son. Nothing in his study indicated he had an extended Russian family. When he asked Pat about their phone conversation, her response was, "What conversation?" His mother said the same thing. With immense trepidation, he returned to his house the following day, and after setting foot back inside, everything had reverted back to the way it was before. No more framed pictures of Dmitri. No more alarming photo albums. And that clay-walled room where Dmitri had spun tops and slept was just his home office again. To this day, he still has no clue what happened during that bizarre September weekend. But doing his own research, he's starting to think he did encounter something in Moscow all those years ago. Some kind of lingering old curse, or a stray spirit, or a Chernaya Vedma, a black witch disguised as an ordinary woman. Although he hasn't seen any evil things bubble up around his place since, every now and then he does have a conversation with Mrs. Babbage, and she seems to remember his son very well. Such a cute little guy, always waving hello. "Did you know he offered me food once? I think it was Kraft dinner." And that is where we leave it tonight. 3 stories. A dispatcher who answered a call she was told never to answer, and heard the voice of the man who vanished before her. A neighbour who answered a voice in the dark, and found something that had been wearing her face while it finished its work. And a professor who came home to a child who called him Papa, and a family who remembered a life he never lived. Drop a comment telling me which one got to you the most. I read every single one. See you in the next one.